just come back in here. I don't know. I must be doing something right or something wrong. What am I doing?
I'm making poor choices.
Okay, you're making poor choices. That works for me. That works for me. So in this poor choice edition of the Just Joshing podcast, we're going to be talking about So right now I'm dabbling in directing. I'm one of my clients right now is I'm shooting a massage therapy educational series right now, which is I actually do enjoy education shows because they're actually surprisingly a lot of fun. You can do a lot of neat things with them. But yeah, I'm like now I'm behind the camera, not so much in front of the camera. It's like, okay, this is a new experience.
Yeah, and that's an interesting place to be, behind the camera, because I spent a lot. I mean, that's where I started in media, was behind the camera and stuff years and years ago, and occasionally it still happens. But yeah, it's a whole different thing where you're framing it up and looking, going, I've got to tell a story, and it's not my smart ass out there in front of it doing it.
Yeah, that's right. And it's fun because again, she's a professional massage therapist. She's really good at her job, but she's not really comfortable in front of the camera. But she sees the value of it because, again, the economy is still got at least one more major dip, I think, next year before we stabilize, and that's the housing market. So you got to start advertising now. That's just the way it is, and she realizes that. But she's got to get comfortable with the camera and the stories, and that's a process. So in one sense, she's kind of paying me to teach her how to public speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, because I mean, and we've done that off and on for clients and stuff over the years, which is and why is somebody pinging and blowing me up now? Oh, not for me. Never mind. It's not a crisis.
Yeah.
Or at least it's not a crisis for me. That's good. Learning to speak and sound coherent, look coherent, and I occasionally manage to pull that off, not too often, but you know, doing that, especially if you're doing training or if you're trying to show off what you do for a living, like doing educational videos, when you're doing things like that, it's there's a lot to that, of learning to be comfortable in front of the camera. There's a lot to learning to temper your cadence. We all have those sin words that we use, like "so," which is one of mine, which didn't used to be, and then got brought in and drives me nuts, because I'll see myself talking, doing a workshop or something, and it's like, "and so," and every time you'll see me just sort of bang my head a little bit. But there's a lot to going through and figuring out how to present content.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some of what I'm working on right now. Is we've got an educational company that, well, beyond AE, but have got an educational company. We're now working on recording workshops, and we're working on training materials, and we're working on all of those kinds of moving pieces. And a lot of the time, this is working with people that are not used to working from camera. They're used to being in front of people. They're used to working in a live room, which is very different from, to work a live room from virtual. And a lot of the time they don't have an audience. And I personally don't like to teach just straight up recorded videos. I like an audience. I like the interaction. I like the questions. But learning to do and teach and create educational video without an audience, if you're not used to that, it's a lot more difficult to not have that feedback.
Well, it's interesting too because it's the subtle storytelling you're doing, right? And using, so I figured out a really clever spot to film the stuff, which is actually our local public library, because it's got conference rooms, which is perfect for sound and lots of other things. But I'm like, so now it comes to fun stuff. It's like, well, okay, so we're in a room. What can we do with it? How can we make this feel like something people are familiar with? Right. So, I mean, when we filmed the first episode, it's like, okay, how can I, and the other thing too that has to be kept in mind too is the goals, right, of the educational content, right? My client has three main goals. I'm not going to go into them, all of them in great deal, but one of them is, right, potential future course material, right? So then one of the little things, like the caveats, is because of the way the conference room is structured, we can create a bit of a classroom feel to it. So, I mean, even something as simple as her writing her name on the board, everybody's seen that. Everybody's done that, right? Why not treat it like a bit of a classroom thing? It could be a lot of fun that way, and doesn't necessarily, and again, it doesn't necessarily detract anything she's doing. The content is still great, but it adds a story to it, and it gives her very quietly a level of expertise.
Mhm. Well, we actually have converted our den downstairs into a video studio. Um, that's a modular video studio. I mean, because we're doing so much stuff with workshops and other things like that, it was okay, great, let's just convert it. Um, I'm still doing some of the work, but one of the fun parts of that was the wife, for some of her classes, wanted to have a podium or something to put notes on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I started looking for, I went looking, I probably should have just gotten one of the little rolling cart, little flat things, but because of when I'm doing some of them, I've got multiple laptops going. I want to be able to control stuff. And one of the backgrounds that I put up is a black cloth background. And I can put up the green screens and white backgrounds and all the rest of that too. But I went and bought a podium. And okay, great, cool. And it's a very dark podium, so it blends into the black. But then when I put it together, the first thought I had was, oh my God, she's going to start a church.
Yes. Wait, so she gets into like a really big southern drawl. It's like, I love you. It's time to come. And when she starts passing a collection plate, you're in trouble at that point. I don't know what to tell you. At that point, you're talking about the Poor Choices edition. It's like, dude, you're in. I don't know how to get you out.
Well, I think they're all afraid that I'm going to be the one that starts the church because
See, in some ways, you're simpler. You're simpler. I think somehow your wife would be the scarier of the two of you. I'm not, no disrespect. I somehow feel. I think people can find a way to stop you. I'm not so sure they could stop your wife.
yeah, I think Joe kind of ran into that because when we were at Multiverse, so she came
Yeah,
along with me. So she and Joe got into a very in-depth conversation. I think she traumatized Joe a little bit.
I could see that. Like again, it's see what a lot of guys don't realize is usually guys that have a really strong drive, right? Like the wife may play a bit of a role, but they're usually tougher than the husband in a lot of ways. And you're like,
I
yeah,
just, yeah, I just frequently I'm along for the ride, and it gets into the debate about okay, I've got to go do my stuff, then you're going to go do your stuff, and then there's the things where we're working on things together, and that always gets interesting.
yeah. Well, no, it's interesting. Like I had one particular like I'm friends with a couple based out of Ottawa, and they when they work together because they are husband and wife, and they actually do sign a contract with each other. There is by design professional lines there. That way, there's no. He loves her very much. She loves him very much. But again, he has a very strong sense of this is personal, this is business.
Uh huh.
Yep. I mean, and I especially with your wife, right? Sometimes again, I don't know if I could work that closely with someone. That's a hard thing to do.
Well, both of us come very much from business backgrounds and technology backgrounds. Now, her background was DR and infrastructure, where mine is more apps and front end and that sort of stuff. So that from that perspective, we complement. But I mean, again, um, for most of her clients, when she's working with people, it's these days it's primarily entrepreneurs, execs, stuff like that. So I mean, it's there are times that it makes sense for us to work together because my skill sets and some of the things that I do, she's like, I may be able to do some of those, but there's things we look at and go, okay, I'm stronger in these areas, she's stronger in those areas. But it's definitively in the contracts with clients and everything else when we're working together. But yeah, it's definitively a business relationship on that side, and then it becomes the okay, you've got to be able to separate the two, and for a lot of people that's probably a challenge.
Oh, it's damn near impossible. Even with that, I mean, there are still moments where I'm sure it's like, goddamn. But at the same time, right? because no matter how much in here you realize, right? There's always going to be a personal stake because it is your wife or it is your significant other, and that's hard. Like not everybody can do it, and there's a reason for that. It's not for everyone, and
No.
no, no,
Well,
and I also just talking to you the few times I've talked to you, it's like if someone is if it would take a very strong will to keep you a entertained, b but also sometimes in line, and so I'm like, yeah, she's probably the scarier of the two of you, and I've never met her, or at least I don't know if I have met her, right? So
you haven't yet, but yeah, most people would tell you that yeah, she's I'm the one that just looks scary. She's yeah, our house is more spy versus spy frequently than anything else.
oh I genuinely get the impression you two genuinely enjoy each other's company, but I'm like, if I'm looking at the one starting a cult trying to take over the world, I'm a little more afraid of her than I am of you. And that's not a knock to you. I'm not saying you're not a dangerous man. I'm just saying something tells me that, I should respect her more. Or maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not otherwise.
It's too much like work these days to take over the world. I'll let her do it. I'm much better to be the yeah, let me be the strategist that goes and says, here's how we're gonna do this. You go do that.
Just you'll be her minion. And that's, hey, listen, as long as it's like I'll be or the lieutenant or something like that, right?
Now she's
So
got to have her own minions. That's not my job.
okay. Okay.
I'm a consultant. I'm an advisor to go and say, that's what you want. Okay. All right. So here's who we got to call for the death ray.
Yeah.
Just uh,
It, listen, we all know people. Just it's just what's in it for them, and it's like I can't believe we're talking about. Like I said, four choices. That seems to be the theme. It's why Joe would be surprised. I could honestly, genuinely see why Joe would be surprised. Like I've learned better. It's I'm doing comic. There's a comic book couple I deal with. Right, I'm actually doing their football pool. Right, they're both genuinely amazing people, but I'm like, she's the protector. Whether I mean, there are situations I'm sure the role reverses. But she's like, no, she's the businesswoman, and it's just like, yep, nothing but respect, right? Because you gotta.
yeah, I get to be the evil business guy. I get to handle most of that stuff.
Listen, it can be fun to be the bad guy sometimes. Sometimes it's actually a lot of fun.
Well, it's what they pay me for, you know.
Yeah. I learned a lot. Like again, I broke like, and I think in my early 30s, I broke the habit of I'm the hero of my own story. I'm not saying there aren't moments. I still think I'm good, but I can actually recognize sometimes I have to be a bastard. Sometimes, and it's the nature of the world. So I'm not always the hero, and that's okay.
Just make sure you're not an NPC. That's the only
No,
thing.
no,
You can
no,
be
no, 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 no. I've never been an NPC. I've never been an NPC. I have played cameo roles, right? I have played small bits, big bits, little, never an NPC, right? Never an NPC, right? Because just no, you gotta, especially in this world, if you're not aware of what's going on around you, you're dead. Like you're dead.
well, seeing as how they I frequently get in the conversation. You know the old curse, "May you live in interesting times," right?
We're here.
And it, I've never had a problem with the interesting times, but there's times you want to look and go and say, can they be just a little less interesting? Or can I have a little more control in those interesting times? No? Okay, fine. Let's go build the bunker.
Yeah. No, see, I've learned this like again, young age. I've learned this. It's like we all there's no matter how big you are or how big you think you are, the world is bigger, and you're not in control as much as you think you are. I've accepted that a long time ago. So the beautiful thing is I can shrug at the shit I can't control. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not aware of the fact that of other people's reactions to things like that are control. That scares me more than the big things beyond my control. It's not okay. For example, the social media stuff with Twitter. Not going to go into all the political stuff. If you really sit there and look at that, that's the nature of the beast. Whether people realize it or not, that's the nature of the beast. But the reactions to it are like really, you know.
So, and this will piss off a lot of people, I know, but the whole Twitter situation, because this is one thing the wife and I were discussing. With the whole thing about Twitter and coming in and going and saying, no, the expectation is you're going to run hot and fast. We've got to go build stuff. Basically, what he has done is put a technology organization back into a build mode.
Yeah.
And when you're in build mode, there is no sanity. If you're in a technology organization and you're in build mode, or if you're trying to build a company of any sort, in build mode, it is batshit crazy on a good day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can tell you, I've worked in organizations and I've done stuff with clients where it was great 100-hour weeks and we haven't had a day off in 4 months. And that's just part of the nature of doing certain things like that. And everybody that is looking right now at Twitter, because again, do I agree with everything that Elon Musk is doing? Nope. And it's not my call. I don't have to worry about it. I have long had a hate relationship with most social media anyway.
Yeah.
Do I think some of the things he's making are potentially healthy choices? Yeah. Do I think it's going to be painful along the way? Yeah. And for everybody that's like, oh, Elon's going to fail. Elon's going to fail. There's a couple of things that I know a lot of people are going to hate this idea, but he's had his back thrown against the wall in every company he's owned or built.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Tesla in about 2015, where it was on the verge of bankruptcy. They were throwing him out of the board. It was like he had gone and blown out a structure that they weren't ready for. They couldn't handle. And then when they turned it around, look where it's at. SpaceX was against the wall. PayPal in the early days so if you look at, he's walked in the door and basically purged house. I have seen plenty of tech companies do this, and it's always painful. I just don't think most people have ever seen it from this magnitude and this level for this public a company. But there's two things I think everybody needs to remember specifically about Twitter. Number one, they were about bankrupt in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
They've never made money. They've never made a profit. They've been propped up from investors and everything else. And for everything else, had Donald Trump not decided to latch onto Twitter and running for president, Twitter would have been gone and bankrupt years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is if you look at the numbers, and I have my concerns about stability and security and all that kind of stuff, but it's social media, so I have those concerns all the time anyway. Bandwidth and usage has gone way the hell up.
Yep.
In the last couple of weeks, and I think a large part of that is people bitching about Twitter, and so.
Well, I look at Twitter slightly not just as a social media platform. I like the cool thing about Twitter compared to most other social media platforms. You can actually get a minute-to-minute update on any news story in the world in a way that cannot be done on any other social media platform, right? It's just the ability to actually see events in real time does not exist anywhere else. The closest is Reddit, and if people want to talk about dumpster fires, go to Reddit. Reddit makes Twitter look like a walk in the park, right?
And then if you really want to go to the dumpster fire, go to 4chan.
Yes. Oh God. Oh God. No. Yeah. No. But that's just the thing. Like I look at, it's not going anywhere. I think I don't know what Mastodon intrigues me because I like the idea. I want to see what a decentralized platform looks like. It's an interesting idea. I don't know if it's a good idea, but it's an interesting idea.
I've got a Mastodon account that I'm just starting to play with again. I signed up for it a good while back because, again, when new platforms come out, I tend to go sign up for them to at least take a look. And and I was trying to remember what the hell my credentials were, so I got to figure that out again. But um,
Yeah.
so the German developer that has built Mastodon, I think that this is kind of that next phase. I mean, looking at both Facebook and Twitter, um, Twitter, I think, has a higher probability of survival as much as everybody wants to talk about it. But if you look at everything else and the level of capital that is probably flowing in behind Twitter that nobody sees to build out, because they want to integrate a payment system, they want to
Yep.
integrate more. I mean, everything they're talking about integrating in the back end of that, because if you really look at Twitter, for the most part, it's not complicated technology.
No, that's
The,
why I actually think this guy has a better chance of surviving than Facebook long term. That's actually
um,
because it is simple.
I
Right?
mean, the hardest, the biggest risk to Twitter is also the number one thing that they should be looking at, which it is if Section 230 gets repealed or reviewed and they declare social media platforms liable for their content, and that's the number one thing I think everybody ought to be worried about.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that has protected social media companies is that basically they were declared as basically being a utility,
Mm-hmm.
that you have a platform, but you're not responsible or liable for your content. And right now, at least in the States, you've got both parties looking at this and trying to look at how to dismantle that. They're wanting to
Yep.
do it for different reasons, but we're already watching the EU has been dismantling similar things. If social media platforms become liable for what's posted on them, they'll lose their viability.
Yeah. No, it'll kill social media because what'll happen there is the reason why are looking at it again, just what I just did. I can watch a minute by minute update without any narrative whatsoever. I can make my own conclusions based on the information that's out there. That is, considering the nature of media companies today and what they primarily do for governments, that is counterintuitive to what they're doing, right? Furthermore, if you're looking at places like California, some of the cases that have been happening against Twitter for all the censorship of the last few years, they're not going to be able to keep censoring people on these platforms without some kind of liability reasons. That's the real reason they're looking at it. But because inevitably censorship on social media is not viable, and that's actually ultimately what may kill Facebook over Twitter. Whereas the other thing too, if
Well,
there's a free
no,
if
go ahead.
there's no if there's a free flowing stream of information, and I don't have to worry. I got a warning on Facebook for using the word cracker. Okay. Now I used it as in Ritz crackers, not right, not the racial connotation of it, but I got a warning for a racial connotation for it. And I'm looking at this and going, really? Right? Really?
The reason I think that Facebook is actually at a greater risk
Mm-hmm.
is longer term. Number one, if we look at what they're trying to do, because if the VR environment that the Zuck has been pushing was really their future, he would not have just cut a lot of their R&D.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at the number of people that Facebook just cut and the number of them that are in that group in R&D for
It was
Meta,
ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
so either A, they cut the people that weren't doing anything, or B, they wiped out groups that they looked at and said, yeah, this is not viable. But I mean, if you look at the age demographics on Facebook, they are definitively aging up rapidly. So if you're running ads on Facebook, or that's where you're looking at going, if your demographic is basically less than 40, running a Facebook ad is useless. And so as that ages out, and then number two, because of so many people have gotten frustrated with how Facebook is going about doing so much of their content moderation, that the older and Gen X is locked and gone, I don't have to deal with this shit. I got stuff to do. And they're leaving. And so the numbers, I mean, if you look, they've tipped over the edge and their numbers are dwindling. Right now, the things economically that are going to hurt pretty much everybody are, number one, The FedEx index is way off. So, considering that tomorrow is Thanksgiving in the States, considering that Black Friday is Friday, and this should be the peak of shopping season for most companies for the year, there's a reason that Amazon's been running Black Friday ads for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Early Black Friday. The reason they've been doing that is because Amazon's warehouses are sitting full and that sales are way off. Now, if you look at what Bezos is coming out and a number of other people are coming out saying, going, yeah, don't shop. I mean, when you have Bezos coming out and saying, don't spend money, you know things are about to get bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have a number of my own theories about why Bezos is coming out and doing that. And I think that they're trying to clear out a lot of the Amazon warehouses of stuff to make it leaner again. So they can shut down a bunch of the real estate and get rid of some warm bodies. But if you look, Amazon is laying people off. Meta's laying people off. You've got all these companies that are laying a ton of people off. And you have FedEx and UPS are laying people off as we go into what should be the busiest shipping part of the season because they don't have the business.
Nope. Okay, so where I'm at in Alberta, it's still okay. I'm not going to say it's great, but it's still okay. I think, but again, I can see it coming. Like next year, there's going to be another major housing crash.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it. It's coming. I'd say spring at the latest, right? It'll go boom.
I think it's going to be regional. The question there kind of becomes, what are interest rates going to do as to how far it drives it down?
I think interest rates are going to keep going up. Based on what I've seen so far, there's a huge inflation issue, and that's not partially because of the pandemic, but there's some other factors with that either. And the U.S. dollar is the base currency of the world. So if the U.S. dollar is inflated, that means the world inflated. To get the world's inflation down, you're going to have to keep raising interest rates, right? Which is so in one sense, we're going to go back to where we were in about 76 and 77 before I was born, because that's where we're going.
Yeah, but I lived through that.
Yeah.
I was little, but I lived through that.
Yeah.
There's a couple things I think that are in play that unless you spend a lot of time around money and economics, and of course I've spent a bunch of my career in financial services and banking industry and moving money and all that kind of stuff. So if you look at what interest rates and inflation are driven by, we were already pouring a ton of capital into the system to prop everything up going back to 2012. But we doubled the amount of money in the system over a 5-year period. Well, hypothetically, what that means is you double the money, then any product is worth half as much. Correct. Or costs twice as much to buy. And
hey, Anita.
Then you also have that fun thing of nobody's making anything. Hey, Anita. Then you have that fun thing of nobody's making anything because manufacturing was shut down for a year. So you got people with money, nothing to buy. That's going to trigger inflation. But I mean, realistically, there's a ton of liquid capital that has got to come out of the system. And then the other problem, of course, is what's happening with the BRICS nations. They're getting ready to take over 40 to 50% of the global currency. So U.S. as the reserve currency is, yeah.
Oh no, they've been trying to get the U.S. off the reserve currency since 2008. As far as they were running scenarios for that, as far back as 2008. U.S. military, of all things, were running scenarios about that because they were like, who would win? Who would likely win? And they said, and it looked like, now this is 2008. I don't know if anything's changed, how much things have changed, but they projected China in 2008 would win that, with second place being gold and silver. Not the EU, nothing else. It was China or gold. That was it.
Well, and that's one of the other projections is that they're going to back the BRICS currency with gold.
Yeah.
And so that's the projection. And with the Saudis and the deal that just got cut, because I mean, the entire reason that we've been a reserve currency for 50 years was petrodollar.
Mhm.
Well, the fact that the Saudis came out and said, yeah, we're going to start trading in other currencies.
Oh yeah, that's been happening. That's been quietly happening for a while. Although it started like country by country. It started country by country. I've been expecting this for a bit, which means that the U.S. is going to go through a hell of a maelstrom for the next 2 years. 2026. Well, maybe we're out of this. Maybe.
I think it's just I don't think there's a question about is there going to be a reset. I think the question is, how does everybody flow through this, and what does it look like afterwards?
Yeah.
And I think for people like you, for me, for a lot of people out there that make a living as freelancers and creators and everything else, what does that mean? Well, I actually think it's potentially a really good thing.
Me too.
Because number one, periods like this create a great deal of opportunity because number one, you wind up having larger company corporate entities. They're not buying, they're not spending money. Yeah, they're not making the revenues, but still, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen underneath the covers. And if you're willing to go out and hustle, there's a lot more people that'll be coming into working for themselves. I think hustle economy, gig economy will shift and become a bit more mature because people that actually know what the hell they're doing will, in some cases, select going into that, and some people will be forced to go into that. And it's going to be one of those things of anytime you have this kind of change go on, there's a lot of opportunity that gets created. There's also a lot of people that take a big hit.
It depends how attached you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing too. Like I look at it like this. A guy like me, what am I doing right now? I'm creating educational content. Why? In hard times, people need to advertise. That's part of it. The other part of it too is right in hard times, medicate. And by medicate, I don't necessarily mean drugs. We buy stuff like this to escape. We look for cheap forms of entertainment to keep us going. It's human nature. It happens everywhere. If you look at Japan in the 90s, when they had nothing, they went to manga. Why? Because manga's cheap. Right? Because manga's cheap.
Escape.
Yeah, it was an escape. So when you're a writer and you're a creative, here's the thing. Sales are going to be they're not going to be giant necessarily big booms unless you get it. I mean, hits are possible. I'm not going to say that it's impossible. Hits are possible during these times, but you got to keep yourself out there because if that's the real secret to this is people have a tendency when the economy individually when the economy shuts down to shut shop. That is the incorrect strategy during hard times. The actual correct strategy during hard times is actually to get louder. Right now, right? Because that in those times, right, people that have money to spend, right, will be looking for places to put it, and the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Period.
Well, not only that, but I mean, if you look, everything goes through seasons and changes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're right now in fall going to winter. The leaves have all fallen off the trees. I was out there trying to blow and clear space, but I mean, the leaves have all fallen off the trees. And so, yeah, it's going to be lean. It's going to be cold. The trees are kind of pulling back. But you look, we still have evergreens.
Mm-hmm.
There's still life out there. There's still stuff to be done. There's still a lot of things that need to happen. And much like we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, if you're a creator and bringing stuff that give people an escape or give people whatever it is they're looking for, whether it's knowledge, education, whatever it is, if you give people that, especially when they need it most, that's how you build a fan base.
Yep.
That's how you build value because people go and say, well, if you can make it through this, so can I. And it's that persistence through times that suck.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people that will stop and not do things because it's about to get stressful. It's been stressful. It's probably about to get worse. I don't say that to stress anybody out more, but to say, look, okay, it's going to probably suck for a little while. But when we come out of this, if you work through this and come out with more product and more reputation, more brand, more give people what they need, when things lighten up again, and they will, you're going to have people that follow through, and that's how you get the big blooms and explosions and developments.
In 2020, I had 800 followers on Facebook. I had like 2,000 followers on Twitter. I am at 3,200 followers on Facebook. I am at 3,500 followers on Twitter. I never stopped. That was my secret. I never stopped. I didn't quit when it got hard. I kept going. Now, has it been easy? Hell no. But I mean, that's life. I chose to start now when things were at their absolute worst, because whatever I build here will last. The lessons I learned here will last. When you build a company in good times, it's great when you have the capital, and the leverage to go for it. But you build a stronger company when you don't have those things, if you can actually do it, right? Because that's the other thing too. I mean, the other part about this too is the pandemic, and the other reason inflation is a big deal is the pandemic created a lot of opportunity for people to leverage shit, and a lot of people were dumb.
I go back. There's an event that I worked with for 20, almost 30 years. That when I first got involved with it and it's a nonprofit event, fundraiser sort of thing. It was a couple of thousand people, and if we were lucky, we were able to donate a couple of $1,000s every year. But it was scrambling and scrounging every year to get the capital to put it on again. And we did some stuff to grow it from a budget of 25 or 30,000 to be able to donate a couple of thousand every year to a budget of to where we went from a crowd of 2,000 maybe to 8 to 10,000, and a budget of 100,000 plus, and able to donate 20, 30, $40,000 a year. And the way we did that was working with the community, working with the people. We worked with our vendors. We worked with the community people that did like events, and everybody. It took a couple of years, but over time, when you work with that community and you make it something where everybody wants to be and something everybody wants to support, they'll show up.
Mm-hmm.
They got to know it exists. And I mean, to do that, like I say, took a couple of years, but once that boom starts and you get to that next level, then the hard part is getting to the next level and the next. But if you can grow and get to the point where you're comfortable and stable, then you've got all the tools you need to continue to grow and become really successful.
And that's where it gets interesting. Because again, people, and this is something that I've definitely learned myself. Comfortable is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Comfortable is dangerous. You have to recognize the fact that when you're comfortable, you stop changing. And the thing about this conversation to anybody listening is, world always changes. There's ups, downs, lefts, rights, and you have to be willing to pivot. And I almost want, like, when I was a kid, my dad would always give me shit because I wouldn't focus. Yeah, he would do like epic storytelling style lectures about focus. But the real secret to success is consistency, discipline, focus. I hate to say it, it's the truth, right?
Showing up is 80% of it.
Yep, that's it.
I mean, so I brought back one of my old shows, Creating Pros, and I started again as a podcast and just started a few weeks ago. And one of the things I did a show on was, do you have a hobby or a business?
Mm-hmm.
And I went through kind of talking about, and this is one of those classes I teach. This is part of a lot of the things as I start out is there's no right, no wrong, but what you intend to do, there's consequences to both of them. If it's a hobby, I'm doing this because I enjoy it. And if I make money, great, versus I'm trying to make part of my living, or I'm trying to make my living from doing this, and the mindset behind it. And most of that is, what do you want the outcome to be so that you know how to focus on it? I mean,
yeah. So I stumbled onto, and it's an interesting this one is another one that's not going to always be popular for some people. I found. Do you know who Kevin Samuels is?
Name sounds familiar.
He was a dude. He's a relations. He was an image consultant for as his regular gig, but he would do a show and he would talk to women about like thinking they were tens and that they were what they really are. And he's
Oh,
trying to so that
okay.
guy. Right. I stumbled onto him a few days ago. His approach. Now I see why people don't like him. Direct. He is a bit harsh, but he looks at things strictly from two perspectives: outcomes and actions. That's
Mhm.
it. That's all he gave a shit about. Doesn't care about anything else. Right? Right? So, I mean, to anyone listening to this, it's vision. What do you want? That sounds really simple, but what do you want to accomplish with this? Whatever it is, like you want to write for a living for a publisher, for yourself, Kickstarter, whatever, like wherever you want to go. What's your goal? What do you want? What's the outcome you desire?
Mhm.
And then at that point, because once you have those things nailed down, then the thing is, how do I go about and get that? And it's not magic. It really isn't. You might have choke points, but it's not magic.
There's no silver bullet. There's no
Nope.
one magic way that works for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other hard part of it that we all talk about is luck is a big part of the whole game.
A little bit. Yep.
But
A little bit.
here's the other thing I'll say. A lot of luck is driven by being places so that you've got an opportunity to be lucky.
I interviewed Marissa Mayer not too long ago. Right. Marissa Mayer, #1 New York Times bestselling author. The first thing she'll say humbly is that she was lucky. But then you look at Marissa Mayer.
Yeah.
In terms of she has consistently hit on New York Times best.
Yep.
Getting there once might be lucky. Staying there is not.
Right. And a lot of it is consistent, put out good product, maintain a brand, and tell people you're there. I mean, once you get there and once you get notice, and this is where a lot of the stuff comes out with social media, is create an environment where people want to interact with you, want to know what you're doing. And I mean, the days of I'm going to be a writer hiding in my hidey hole in my New York apartment, crouched over a typewriter, those are long dead and they aren't coming back. But at the same time, we have tools now that are available at negligible cost to let you reach a global platform if you're willing to do the work, spend the time, and spend some of the money to get there.
And the other part about it too is writers can no longer just be writers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking strictly to people who writing as a passion is that you're a different category. We're not talking about that. That's a different category. And honestly, no judgment, no judgment. But if you're writing for a living, the days of you as he goes invisible again. Are you seriously doing like a Death Call thing over there? Like are you gonna do like a Dr. Claw voice next?
Well, that was fun.
Yeah. Did you hear all that?
No, I caught part of it and then it flickered.
So when he flickered, I said, "Oh, he's really starting his death cult thing." I was like, "Why am I going to get like a Dr. Claw evil villain voice coming out of there? I'll get you, gadget." No, anyways, what I was going to say is, okay, I'm not saying I hit a perfect home run, but I look at how I approach my social media. I inspire people. That's what I do.
You've got to have fun. There is,
Yeah.
and there's a lot to tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is one of those things that I keep kind of going back and forth is everybody's got a story, everybody's got something to teach, and everybody's got something to learn. And because I've been trying to hire some people for some work, and I'm like, part of this is my expectation if you're working for me is a big part of your life is not only teaching or not only learning but teaching. there's got to be a reason why you're working with and doing what you're doing. You've got to be part of working with people and helping to say this is why we're here. Because if you're going to be part of my team and on the team, um, that's just an expectation. And I've had a number of people that have the people that I have gone on next phases with. It's like, okay, yep, I get that, I understand that. Cool, rock on. The people that are like, oh, well, if you're just planning to come and show up, the answer is no. I don't have time for that. Um, and I mean that's a little bit of a hard way to put it, but yeah, if you're planning to come in and work for me, um, then a big part of what's going on is you're showing up is a big part of it, but you've also got to be ready to go for the longer, harder ride.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those things of not everybody's ready to do it, and there's nothing right or wrong with that. But again, kind of like we were talking a little bit about the Twitter scenario, if you're coming in to go for that ride, it's not necessarily going to be easy, but it is going to be one that hopefully, when you go for that ride, you're going to walk away knowing a whole lot more and feeling a whole lot more rewarded by what you managed to be able to do. And that's one of those things that for me is as important as anything else. Um, Again, not necessarily easy, but
it doesn't have to be easy. The expectations go two ways, right? First, like you want someone to show up, whatever your expectations are of the job. You expect people to do that,
right,
and they're expecting. They have expectations too, and when you work with people, and this is just working with clients, are the expectations the same?
right,
Right? And that's what it comes down to, right? You know, I'm like I said, current clients I'm working with, like again, the direction thing. There are expectations there. There's a time limit there too, because again, this is all fairness to my client. They're giving it enough time to see if this is for them, and if it is for them, we'll continue. We'll go to the next phase. But if not, there's a point where there's no hard feelings,
right.
right? And that's the other thing too. Like, you built that in, like no hard feelings. This is what I expect. This is what you expect from me. If we can fulfill them, we can have a relationship. If we can't,
No
that's
harm,
fine
no
too.
foul.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one of the things I do a lot of the time. If somebody I'm going to work with from a longer term engagement, a lot of the time it's like, all right, let's work on a little bit of stuff here to make sure that this is going to work for everybody before I go sign a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Because once we sign contracts, a lot of the time what I'm putting into kind of that initial work is figuring out how and if we can work together. Because again, if you're not going to listen, I'm not going to work with you because it's not worth your time, my time, your money. I'll take it, but that's not something that's going to make either of us happy when we're done.
Mm-hmm.
I much prefer to work with people that I'm planning on building long-term relationships with generally. Um, and by doing that, it's like, okay, yeah, I may give away a little bit of free work here and there, but I'd rather do that and know that the agreements that are going to work are going to work.
Yeah. There's service with, again, the people you want to work with,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have a client I'm probably going to be working with in December or January as well, probably. We have a good working relationship, right? Like, we regularly even have coffee together as friends, right? We have a good working relationship, and again, she's very blunt. She tells me exactly what to expect. I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
I have no illusions. It's, yeah, from a freelancer's perspective, right? Even a client's perspective, like, things can change. Tell me. It goes,
Transparency.
yeah.
Be transparent.
Mm-hmm. That will go a lot farther than again. Not every job works out, but that transparency is there. There's a chance we'll work together again.
Yeah. If something works together for everybody, then yeah, that's going to be somebody that A, you work with again, and B, they're going to probably bring the other people that you want to work with, because again, it's kind of like the rest of the network. It's if you can find people that do and deliver and can work well together and all that kind of good stuff, that's how you make things work.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's going to gel. You can be friends with somebody and not be able to work with them. You can work with somebody and not be friends and not like them. But depending on which side of the business you're on, you want to make sure that you can actually get along and communicate with the people you're working with. Because if you can't, it's going to fail every time.
Every single time, without and it'll fail for one of four reasons, right? Like one of four different reasons. Either they're not listening to you, they're not going to do what you're going to say, communication breakdowns, mental instability, right? And ultimately, what it could just simply mean is they're just not ready for you.
Right. I mean, because there are times that it may look great on paper, but styles clash, communication styles clash, or maybe just how you interpret things, the two of you interpret things doesn't mesh. Mm-hmm. And so if that happens, a lot of time you can fix that by saying, okay, I communicate in this language, you communicate in that language. Set up the right rules of engagement. There's a lot of time you can make that work if it's worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a ton of work to do, and this is all part of making the engine work. But as writers, especially, if you're a writer, you better know how to communicate, because if you can't, it's going to be a problem.
And going one step further, and if you can communicate, I mean, and by what he means by that is learn how to be diplomatic, right? You may not like something, but you know what? There are ways to present things in a way that no one gets hurt.
There's value in being able to tell somebody to go to hell and make them look forward to the trip. Or
exactly.
If you really don't care, there are times it feels really good to stand on the bridge with a pile of dynamite, a tub of gasoline, and a match and a cigar, and stand and go, I'm going to be lighting my next path with this fire.
Fuck it.
But generally, it's not worth it. Not good for you, not good for them. Just go and say,
no.
I have definitively blown up a few bridges in my world, in my career, and every time it was definitively that choice of, no, I don't want there to be any question at all whatsoever that this does not.
I can honestly relate to that. So I'm not going to name names. I always question. I'm not going to name names. I'm not. When I went to go fix my teeth, I did a GoFundMe, right? I had some anger towards a very particular creative. I didn't mention them by name. I didn't mention them by name. I didn't mention them, but
absolutely,
yes, absolutely. Anita, this is I think this story a little like this story actually affirms.
Anita's just looking for more body counts to add to the next book.
Yeah, hey, listen, that's fine. So listen, dynamite, cigar, also a little gasoline never hurts as well. But this is what I did. I'll tell you what I did. So when I told my story, I did it on my podcast way back, like way back. I just told the story how I lost my teeth. Some of that anger was definitely there. He outs himself on my Facebook. And he goes off on, and he tries to defend his reputation. I couldn't actually believe he did it. I was actually generally stunned that this was the way he went to do this. And I was working full time at the day job at the time, so I did not have the luxury to respond. That actually worked out to my advantage a little bit, because I got to see everything kind of play out. I talked to some friends. I had a few of them listen to me, because again, all fairness, I wasn't fully clear. My judgment wasn't fully like 100% on this. But ultimately, I realized he didn't give a shit about me. He gave a shit about his reputation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the funny thing was, I didn't mention him. He outed himself, which I thought was like hilarious. pointed that out to him. It's like, dude, I didn't actually out you. You did that, right? Right. And then I was like, okay, how am I going to light this bridge on fire? Because I asked him, why did you do this? He goes, I was here to protect my reputation. And my response to him is, you literally went in and interrupted a dude fixing his teeth on a GoFundMe for your reputation. Does that sound like you have a reputation worth having? Hit him right where it hurt. I burned it right to the fucking ground. Because I was right. I thought it was the right thing to do. Like, there are some relationships that are not worth keeping.
There are definitively times when you look and go and say, no. The question is, is it one of those rare times where it's worth looking and going, really? That's where you want to go? Great. All right. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things of, even 99 times out of 100, if somebody wants to play dirty, I'm going to smile and nod and go, not worth the time. If you happen to be the unlucky one that hits that, it's 1% of the time. It's like, all right.
Again, he went to my Facebook. It wasn't like he was on his own platform.
Right.
He actually came to me on my Facebook, on my GoFundMe, and interrupted. He deserved what he got.
Generally, people that are going to do that that's guilt wanting to come out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know that. Yeah, so I know that.
That's when you sit back in the lounge chair, and this is old age talking, absolutely, because there's no way in hell, because in my misspent youth, I'd have been much more likely to go, oh, no, hell no, somebody's got to go get their ass beat. Now it's just like, if you make me get up, we're both going to have a bad day.
Mm-hmm. That's it. No. See again, young guy, old guy. Young guy will enjoy the exercise. I'm middle-aged. I still kind of enjoy it, but I'm going to get there faster than the young guy. You're like, I don't got fucking time for this shit. So I'm going to make this as quick and as brutal as possible, so there's no doubt that this was a bad idea.
And again, I'm old, Gen X. There's a lot of pent-up anger and frustration in there. If you happen to be the one that gets the brunt end of that, that's probably not going to work out well for you. So, and as a friend of mine is famed for saying, I'm probably going to walk away bleeding, but I'm not going to be the only one bleeding.
Well, that's the whole point. It's like if you can't necessarily win the fight, you make it so painful that they don't ever want to do it again. That's the idea. Like, you don't. It's not always about winning the fight. It's about making the process as painful as possible. That's what it's actually really about. You can make it painful.
You are correct. There are some people that are not. Social media enables people to show you exactly who they are.
Absolutely.
Give people an opportunity, they will tell you exactly who the hell they are.
Always. Actually, the thing is, everybody gives it away. Everybody. Mm-hmm. The question is, when do you see it? That's actually legitimately the question. Can you read the room?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is yes, then you can pick it up. And because of I'm assuming you've had some terrible experiences like I've had, right? You learn real quick. Oh, I've seen this flag before. And then you give it the finger, like I just did, and then you just don't care. It's like, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, there's times you got to look at someone and go, I am too old for this bullshit. I am not here for the bullshit. I got stuff to get done. Mm-hmm. We can either get stuff done, or you can go away. Don't care. Pick one. Don't care. Preferably go the hell away.
But beyond that, actually, before we get to near the end of this bad boy, how have you been? Like, what else have you been up to?
It's been it's been pretty damn crazy. All of which is good stuff. We've been working on workshops, new stuff to roll out the door on AE, and the workshops company. So The fun of it was back in the summer. I was in the process of changing platforms anyway, and the platform I had everything on got bought, and we had like a week's worth of notice that they just shut everything down, which I was not happy about. So we've been moving the classes and building the platform well, as things are wont to be. Things always take longer than you plan on, but so all of that's about to be back up and available. So existing, students and stuff like that have been able to get into their classes finally, but we've not been able to roll out the new classes and haven't been able to sell classes to new students unless you get a hold of me, and then we do things the hard way. Right now, I'm in the process of re-recording. So there's 3 classes that I've been teaching for years and years and years. One of which is the business essentials class, one of which is the business planning class, and one of which is kind of an intellectual property class, basics of an IP class. And between the 3 of them, it's about 22 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now, one of the things I'm in the process of doing is collapsing all that, because there's a lot of crossover between them. So the essentials class and the business plan class, I'm collapsing from about 18, 19 hours. It'll be about a 12-hour class.
Okay.
And got some new toys and resources and stuff that students will get for that. So anybody that's been in either one is going to get that. But that I'm looking at rolling out hopefully in January, along with the new revised IP class, some marketing classes that are coming out. And for the SpecFic Academy, they're going to also be getting those classes. So if you're a student over at the SpecFic Academy, you'll be able to get those classes over there too. Continual has been incredibly busy for anybody who's not checked out the Continual convention. So because all of the stuff was on the same platform, I've been rebuilding Continual's website so you can get to the new stuff. But we've crossed 600 shows in less than 3 years. And I've restarted Creating Pros, which is creatingpros.com. That's PROS, not PROSE. But that puppy has been cranked up and is rolled out as a podcast. And the fun part of that was that my wife and I did episode 1 of that together as a. Why? Thank you. That's
get
it.
that? Yeah, of course.
Yep. No, PROS, not PROSE.
They gave me
Hang on.
POR.
Yes. As in creating professionals. So in other words, if I was smart, I would just have gone ahead and typed it in the chat, right?
Yeah.
Nope, that's not it.
Like that? Did I get? That's not it either.
That would be the winner.
That's not it either. They gave me an award for this, James. They gave me I won an award for shit like this. Oh shit! What the hell?
Well,
there it goes.
But so we did that. The first episode of it was the wife and I as an episode, because when she finally launched her podcast, she did not 1 but 2. One of which is a daily kind of morning mindset thing that's called "I Speak the Language of the Universe" or "Speak the Language of the Universe." Speak the language of the universe. And then the second one is Mindset Strategist. Well, we did it as an episode of Mindset Strategist. So it ran out on both. Well, the episode was about the mindset of the creative, and it was tied into the first day of NaNoWriMo. So we've been doing a bunch of that stuff. Right now, I am in the process of lining up to be teaching a bunch of workshops in the spring. So I'm going to be teaching at Saga Conference in Winston-Salem. Saga is going to be in Winston-Salem this year. I've lined up to do a bunch of conventions next year. And I'll be teaching workshops at a bunch of conventions, as well as we're working on trying to schedule a retreat, at least 1 teaching retreat for next year, later in the year. So it's been really busy. I need a clone. Actually, I need about 12 clones, but the problem is it would just be who can kill who, because there can still only be 1 me.
And again, looking at that, I'll be like, so James, which one are you? And no matter if it's you or the clone, you just say me.
It's me.
Yeah, that's right.
In fact, I actually am the clone. The truth of it is,
yeah.
But
Did you Spider-Man me, James? Did you Spider-Man me? Is
I
it
can
clone
neither
all
confirm
along?
I can neither confirm nor deny as I'm sitting here looking like alfalfa.
Okay.
Um, but no, I mean it's been good. Had a couple of other change-ups going on in the background, all of which kind of realigned to the stuff I'm trying to do. So I mean, all of it's been really good. We've had client stuff starting to grow again across a multitude. There is, in fact, got some projects can't quite talk about publicly yet, but I mean, a couple of things with publishing companies where we're starting some things in the background that are growing. Um, Hopefully, in about a week, we've got one project we'll actually be able to finally announce. Um, so it's all been really good. It's all been really insanely busy. Um, and so yeah, it's just kind of the normal. Yeah, it's one of those things of I'm doing a ton of client stuff, and occasionally, and eventually I'll get back to my shit. But
Yeah. So I'll tell you my master plan next year. So as you can see, I'm very close to 900 episodes.
yep,
Very, very close. I'm trying to get a really cool guest for 900. I'm trying. I don't know if I'm going to get there in time. Right.
I don't know
Someone
if
I've
I'll be
always.
available for it, but let me know, and I'll.
I was going to ask you for something between 900 and 1,000, but we'll get to that in a minute. So here's the plan: between 900 to 1,000, I'm actually doing a little bit of a combination of. I'm still going to have new guests, but I'm also going to have a bit of a greatest hits every era of the show because the show has evolved quite a bit, right? I got guests coming back from the very beginning. Like my very first guest is going to be episode 999, right?
Sweet.
Yeah, so I'm going full circle, right? Like I'm gonna try to bookend this version of the show with my very, very first guest. So if you guys want to know who that is, you can always look in my archives. Episode 1 is up. You can see who it is. But I'm just
So
doing
the
like a whole
truth
bunch.
is, episode 999 will be the last one of the show. Episode 1,000 is going to be a whole new show.
Kind of very close. Episode 1000, I'm going for an even bigger guest than 900. I've already started asking for this particular person. And if I can get it, I end the show that way. If I can't, I'm not going to hold my breath on this because I would love this, but I'm not going to hold my breath on it. If I can't get it, I'll probably end it kind of like a drink, like as a long stream with different guests throughout the show that would be the other way to do it. But episode 1001, this is what I'm going to do when I get to 1001 or thereabouts. Right? We'll see how long it actually takes me to get my ass on the road. But I'm actually looking at getting a Mystery Machine style ass van and driving all over the place and interviewing people actually wherever eating ice cream and Bailey's. I'm actually creating a sponsorship letter right now because I figure, again, we're talking about the idea of self-medication being also hope and joy. If I'm going around and exploring people and their worlds, their excitement, especially in rough times, it's a great escape, not just for my guests, but for everybody else. So I think I have an interesting idea for a show. And if I get enough sponsorship for it, then once I hit 1,001, I'll be going all over Canada and the United States interviewing people. I got kind of a master plan for it. We'll see how it all goes, but that's what I want to do. And I've got 3 Kickstarters I plan on doing next year because I'm
Do
insane.
we let Canadians into this country yet?
What?
Do we let
I'm
Canadians
dual.
in yet?
I'm dual. I can go in there. I can go to your part of the world anytime I want, and it might be a good idea. I don't know. Canada has its own little bits of insanity that I think it needs to deal with. But I'll be. But I look at it this way: like after the pandemic and after everything that's kind of happened for the last few years, I've met some amazing people, and it's the little things that matter at the end of the day, right? So. Yeah, I want to go have ice cream in Bailey's with a heavy metal band in Denver, Colorado. Because why the fuck not?
Why not?
Yeah. So am I crazy or am I crazy?
As long as you can work from anywhere.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
crazy is not a bad thing. See,
No.
here's what I'm picturing. You're going to live out of a van for 6 months as you just tour the country.
Maybe even longer. Maybe even longer. Right. So I'm okay with that. I'm like, again, at this point in my life, it's about getting everything out of my system as I can because I get to the point where I gotta settle down and shit at some point. So
go get one of those, pop-up vans and go roam.
That's what I'm planning on. That's what I'm planning on. It'll be
And,
fun.
just network the way across the country and roam and meander, and it'll
That is
be just Josh and live from here, just Josh and live from there. And
exactly. I got some really cool like stuff coming up there, but that's the plan because I again, the ultimate goal for this show is ultimately a studio style show, but why not do every iteration that you can along the way?
well, see, here's what I'm picturing is you're going to get one of those like multi-million dollar RVs and build a studio in the back. And, so everybody will be able to come in and sit there. And, the next thing we'll be dealing with you is you and Rogan.
Yeah, probably. Hey, listen, listen. Seek what the master sought. There's a little thing. See, any good creative should look at this. They shouldn't be looking at their heroes. They should be admiring their heroes. But they're also on the back of their heads. They should be thinking about how to kill them. And what I mean by that is become that guy. It doesn't mean you get there, but that's not the point. The point is to go up that mountain yourself.
well, it's much like the idea of mastery. We talk
Yeah.
about one of the big debates was, when you look at Star Wars, Master Yoda. Well, what does it really mean to have mastery? What it really means is you don't know shit, but you know how you can go figure out what you need to know, and you know that you're never going to stop being a student. And I think
Hmm.
that's the hard part for most people is they think, well, if I master this, then I'm done. No, what that means is you've learned enough to know where you get started from. That's really what mastery means, and that's the hard part. So if you're the teacher, the best thing you can ever have is your student do better than you.
Absolutely. That
You know,
means that's
if
the ultimate compliment.
if your goal, look at the law of the Sith. Not that I would ever study that, but there can only be two, and the goal is to knock the boss off to go get your next student. Um, is that's part of that kind of mastery is surpassing the master, which means you've bested them in some way, shape, or form. The downside of that is, it usually involves something pointy, lighty, and hot that doesn't go so well for the master. But that again is part of it is that struggle, which always says you've got to be able to be better than me to show that you've gotten better than me. And it's not just I want you to come to my level. It's I want you to be better than me because that's the only way you show true mastery.
Yeah, that's it. Like you can't look at I'm looking at everything I kind of want to do, even writing wise. Like I'm a big fan of the Parker novels by Darwin Cook. I want to do something better. I'm a big fan of Dr. Seuss. I want to do something better. Now I might sound ambitious to everybody, but it's called taking your swing at the bat. And if I
Well,
do fall short, I'm humble enough to acknowledge this. That's a lofty goal. I may fall short of that, but that's not the point. You got to try.
and the other that, but it's not only you want to achieve that, but that's also part of cultural growth.
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss is not out making any more books. If we look at quote unquote the classics, they're a fixed point in time. We write and create for now and this point in time, and hopefully a few of these will wind up being seen and known and remembered in a year, 5 years, 20 years, 50 years. But this is a fixed point in time, and creating something that is for today means it is for today. Hopefully some of those things will have that message that carries on for longer than that, but that's part of it too is that mastery shows I created it for that point in time, and it was a pinnacle of that point in time, at least for me and my skill set and whatever that was at that time. But if we look, most commercial fiction, it's set for that point in time. It's set for that reader, and most things don't live past that time, which is
Yep.
fine.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. Like honestly, like that's the thing. Like there's no. This goes back to there's no wrong answer. But you got to be honest with yourself, right? I'm doing things to grow. I'm still in a very much a growth point in my life, right? And because I'm still in that position, even though I might be a little old to still be growing, I don't know, right? Some people would
If you're
say
not
that.
growing, you're dying.
That's true. That is true. So, but I mean, the thing is, you have to look at it like you can't look at you can't look at the people you admire as I could never be them. No, you can't be them, but you could be better.
Yeah. Or
You could
different.
be or different. And there's not. And by the way, whatever the result is, cool. Right. Honestly, cool. Try. That's what matters. I feel like I was almost as Star Wars as I get.
Well, I mean, what's the other option? We're hobbits,
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, here. I think my favorite scene in that movie, my favorite scene, ironically, is the dumb one, the dumbest ones. They're in the hunt. They're getting hunted by these evil undead kings, and the hobbits decide they're going to cook breakfast in the fire. Hey, I got some crispy bacon. I was like, what the? It's like what?
Look, there's something important in that lesson, which is the one of it doesn't matter who's after you or what they're trying to do to you. There's always time for bacon.
Always time for bacon. I think that's actually a good spot to call this conversation. By the way, when I get to 900 to 1,000 at some point, would you like to come back during that
Of
little?
course.
Yes.
I'll show up and be a smart ass. I mean, I am willing to show up and okay, yeah, I am wearing a dark side t-shirt. So sure.
You're wearing a dark side t-shirt. We've talked about you possibly. We're talking. This has been a poor choice themed episode, right? So let's talk about this. We talked about clones. So I mean, I even be talking to the real James for all I know, right? Right. Talk about killing the master to replace it, which ironically is a very narcissistic, considering what we've talked about in terms of clones, would be a very narcissistic end for you, right? Starting cults, which we agree that your wife might be is probably the scarier of the two of you.
Yeah, she's already stuck her head in twice, looking at me, going, "What the hell are you doing?" So,
By the way, just tell her I said hello. And then we talked about basically freelancing in business. Actually, which leads to the last point. I think this is the modern writer, and this is something I think writers have. We talked about how writers can't be the guys hiding the typewriters anymore. But the other thing is, we can't be just artists anymore. Right? And by the way, again, this goes for people not for passion. This isn't about again. If you're doing it for passion, you have different goals. This is for the business end of it. You're a business person, and you've got to think like a business person. We no longer live in a world where, yes, you can hire out people, but even then, you're still a business person.
Mm-hmm. Well, and actually, I'm going to say that the real professional artists always have been. The business has changed. How you make your revenues has changed. I mean, we went to the Da Vinci exhibit a couple of months ago, and I've always been a student of Da Vinci, but fundamentally, he made a living by hustling kings and big names. It was, oh yeah, pay me and we'll keep this thing going. That was patronage. If you look at the period of the Renaissance, the business of being a really successful artist was getting to the point where somebody said, yeah, you're going to be my house artist. And then I'm going to sub you out to other people to go do work, but you're the artist of our house. That was the nature of patronage. If we look at the business of artwork, whether you were doing ad copy, paintings, whatever the case may be, the business has always changed. But the guys that have made a living as an artist, a writer, creator, musician, whatever else, if they weren't running as a business, somebody was doing it for them.
Exactly.
And I think that's the big win.
Yeah. And if you don't have all the tools yourself, find people that do, because they do exist. They do exist, right? So, on that note, sir. So we did creatingpros.com. Do you want to promote that one more time, since that seems to be the current thing?
Sure. Creatingpros.com, PROS as in creating professionals. And of course, you can find me at jamespnettles.com, which will get you to most everything else that I'm doing as well. I've got to be making updates to the website because right now it's out of date, because it is. But if you go there, you can get to me at the Continual Convention as well. You can get to the Speculative Fiction Academy and all the stuff that we're doing over there. And there are some more new projects that are coming. So if you follow me there, and hopefully the newsletter, sign up, and that stuff will be back up and available here in the next week or two.
All right.
And so the one thing I will say is also, if you're interested in any of this, either catch me on social media or catch up with what we're doing here, because I am starting to teach mini workshops as both a part of Creating Pros, but I'll also be teaching live mini workshops that are going to be freebies. I'm hoping to do that once a month again, starting that back up probably in January. So if you're interested in any of this kind of stuff, keep up, find out what's going on, and you'll be able to sign up for those.
Fair enough. And to everybody watching, listening, I currently have a Black Friday sale for boards and pictures. 10 packages are going for $300 instead of my usual $400. And I'm also doing a 2-for-1 video audio sale. You can go check my website right now for that. And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing It. My guest tomorrow afternoon is the one and only Jessica Renwick. First time I've had her individually on the show, and bet 700 episodes ago. So it's been a while. So for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys next time. I'm hitting the button, I swear. It's just going slow.
Don't make me heckle. Don't make me heckle as we're